Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Totally Well Show. I'm your host, Joyce Strong. The Totally Well Show is a place where we get curious, ask questions, and explore everything to do with health, wellness, fitness, personal development, helping people, and all the things it takes to help you live a strong, joyous life. My guest today is Dr. Sailaja Reddy. Hi, Dr. Reddy.
Hi, Joyce. Thank you for inviting me to the show.
Thank you for coming. Dr. Reddy is an MD and an internal medicine physician, but switching now over to functional medicine and integrative medicine. And so I wanted to get to know you a little bit today and hear a little how you got into medicine and then shifting over to the prevention side.
I have been practicing internal medicine for the past 25 years, actually. Recently, I shifted to functional and integrative medicine. This was an accident, actually. I happened to stumble upon a holistic medicine website when I was looking for the CMEs. And I'm like, wow, this is an interesting, let me go explore. And I got certified there. American Board of Integrative and Holistic Medicine. There I happened to meet several physicians who were going for integrative and functional medicine.
Yeah.
Then for my next year, and I started pursuing the certification there. I just loved it. It is like functional medicine is fixing the root causes. It's identifying the underlying root causes rather than treating the isolated set of symptoms. Because I have always treated my conditions like that, but it's very good to get a formal training and pursue that care for myself, my family, and for the patient. It's very satisfying and rewarding.
So it must have been really rewarding for you to see that what your heart told you,
yes.
And what your common sense told you made sense. And by the way, for people to reach you, I just want to make sure we remember to say that RootHealthMD.
Yes, that's the name of my clinic. RootHealthMD.com is the website.
Okay, and also you have a Facebook page.
The same name.
Got it. So if anybody's looking, and Dr. Reddy is in Framingham, but also sees patients remotely, so you don't have to live locally to have this kind of help.
Within the state, Massachusetts.
Within the state, yeah. So I know a lot of our viewers have a sense of what holistic that term means, but when you're reaching out for a medical practitioner, I really wanted to help distinguish those terms. Are they exactly the same? What are the differences between your conventional primary care doctor, integrative, functional, alternative, holistic? Can you go into that?
That's a very good question, actually. A lot of people ask me that.
Yeah.
So conventional medicine, it's a traditional medicine.
Yeah.
You go by the standard of care, use the medications and look at the symptoms and treat the symptoms, isolated symptoms.
Okay.
But you're not looking at the person as a whole. That's because doctors don't have that type of training, and of course they don't have time also. It's just a revolving door. You have to see more than 20 patients a day.
And that's because of the way the structure is set
the
up,
structure is
the
set
education,
up, and
the
the training
structure,
also,
and then
actually,
the insurances
and the insurances and everything. And there are several confusing terms there. Alternative medicine, holistic medicine, integrative, functional. People get confused when they see all this. What is this?
Yeah.
Let me explain one at a time. This is holistic medicine is a non-conventional medicine without any traditional practice. Like when you do alternative medicine, you're doing non-conventional in addition to the conventional practice. You're doing both.
Okay.
So pretty much alternative and integrative are the same thing. Functional medicine is evidence-based medicine. It is a systems biology approach to your health, functioning, and disease. And in functional medicine, you look at the root causes. Integrative medicine is, there is an overlap between the functional and integrative medicine, but integrative medicine is not always evidence-based. There could be some we use which is not evidence-based. And
so it's more anecdotally based or experience-based?
Yes, integrative medicine.
I didn't know that. That was a good clarification. Yeah.
And integrative medicine includes mind, body, and spirit in addition to the physical aspect of health.
Okay.
So, and integrative medicine uses a wide variety of non-conventional treatments like acupuncture, yoga, like aromatherapies, and several of them. But the functional medicine focuses more on fixing the root cause with the advanced testing. So they both are slightly different, but it's good to have knowledge in both of them, so I could put both of these in my conventional practice. It's an excellent combination to have to be qualified in all these three things. So we can treat several chronic conditions. Because in the initial stages, when patients' conditions are not stable, you will have to use conventional medications also. But the goal is to bring down the medications and treat them mostly with by fixing the root causes and detoxify the patients and give the supplements and educate them on the lifestyle changes. You can do all these things.
What a great resource to have somebody trained in the medical, conventional medical, and then have this added layer or layers to be able to like you say, to transition somebody off of their medications and get them to address the bigger picture. So,
right. It is actually a good thing. I wish a lot of other physicians could get this training as well. But this is time-intensive process, and you won't be able to do all this in 10-15-minute visits. You need to see the patient at least for an hour, more than that, in fact. If you include the time.
Be different for you now, shifting from internal medicine to this. You're going to get to spend more time with
the patients. This is going to be a new thing for me. I have to get used to not seeing patients in 10 minutes. So I'm sure I'll enjoy this way. This is something different.
I had a client who was a physician, and she used to say she was jealous of me for all the time I could spend with her, because she couldn't do that under the umbrella of what she was working in.
So I would love to start this. I mean, it's good to learn new things and help people out there.
So if a person wants to come in to see a functional medicine doctor, like what kinds of conditions would they need to go beyond their primary care doctor for?
So it's not anything different, because most of these patients see their primary care doctors anyway. Because for the chronic medical conditions, for example, diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, I see the patients for the same conditions, but the way we approach these conditions is different in functional medicine practice. Because in mainstream practice, you initially, give some education about the diet. For example, I'll give diabetes as an example. When the patient comes with the diabetes, you just tell the patient, what to eat for a few minutes, and then start the medication if the numbers are high. Then we don't really look at the root causes. In functional medicine, if they come, we look at their gut, we look at their mitochondria, we look at their toxins. You fix everything. Maybe just by fixing those things, this person is able to produce more insulin and naturally fix the diabetes without even needing the medications. And at the same time, you're monitoring the blood sugars to see the progress. So it's a fascinating field of medicine to practice.
It's very different to have that, and even the mindset that goes with that, because I think a patient may not have enough time, you don't have enough time with the patient, they don't have enough time with you. They are shocked, oh my gosh, I'm pre-diabetic, I'm diabetic.
Exactly.
And they go right to the medicine and maybe don't even address that they could change their lifestyle with food or, the whole mindset piece. So the fact that you have more time to go into that with them.
Actually, this happened to my husband. Sometimes even it's not easy to fix a family member. So my husband had been telling me oh, my mom has it, so I don't think you can fix it. But he happened to watch several videos and testimonials from my patients, how I was able to, fix it. He said okay, then do something, for my diabetes. And I kind of did a lot of testing, and I gave him supplements. Within 3 months, he was able to come off all his medications, insulin and everything. I was actually surprised, but he was very committed to it. He followed all the instructions about the diet, lifestyle, exercise, and
But what you said at the start is, my mother had it, so therefore I'm going to get it. There's nothing I can do. A lot of people walk around believing that. Particularly with, we're talking about type 2 diabetes.
That's what I mean. Type 1 may be difficult to
It's a different disease,
it's really. It's an autoimmune condition. So type 2 is what I meant.
I'm curious about type 1. I don't know if you can answer this off the the fly, but where you call it an autoimmune condition, I think the same thing. And with sometimes people get diagnosed with type 1, but they might be able to change that as well or improve that?
Actually, you're right. Actually, type 1 is also possible, but not as easy as type 2.
Right.
But some patients with type 1, you can correct the autoimmune conditions, because that's the main thing in functional medicine. Like you can reverse the chronic diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis and lupus, and even the gastrointestinal conditions like Crohn's and all. So diabetes is also an autoimmune condition. If you correct the autoimmune related issues in the root cause, then you could be able to do that.
Can you give me some examples what you mean by root cause? I want to make sure where you are, RootHealthMD, I want to make sure people get the concept of what a root cause is or what might be triggering an autoimmune.
So I'll give an example again for diabetes. So diabetes is like lack of insulin, or there is insulin resistance, right? There is a gland in pancreas that produces insulin. They're called beta cells. So there are several reasons why your beta cell function may not be optimal, because you probably have toxins lurking in your body, and you have some nutritional deficiencies which were never looked at. Why do you get the nutritional deficiencies? Sometimes we tend to think that we are eating very healthy. Even for the people who have very good health habits, I found a lot of deficiencies. That comes because their gut lining isn't intact and they're not absorbing the nutrients like they should. So we need to fix the bacteria in the gut, and we have to fix the lining. We have to keep it intact for the nutrients to be absorbed. And for the nutrients to get into the cell, you need to get the toxins out of the cell first so that the nutrients can get in. So these things are not looked in a traditional practice. So those are called root causes. So is the nutrient going into the cell? Are the toxins coming out of the cell properly? Is your gut nice and clean? Is it like a free-flowing river, not a backlogged river, you know? So we look at all those causes. And the mitochondrial function is also an important thing to look at. So there are all advanced testing that we do in functional medicine to look at all those things. Those tests are not available in the traditional practice. They're not standard of care.
Right, they're not standard of care. They're not necessarily that much more expensive to do, but they're just not part of the standard practice, or they won't be approved by their insurance necessarily.
A lot of times the insurance do approve these tests if we give the right indication. So may not be 100%, but you get at least like 60 to 70% coverage through the insurance. And depending on what type of insurance, like most of the time PPO insurance, they cover a bit more than the HMOs.
Okay. So there was something that you said that I wanted to dig a little deeper in. I know what it was. So when you talked about gut health, one of the things when I'm talking with people is, I don't know that when people kind of think of like this part of our body is the stomach, they point and they call this my stomach, right? And when we're so I wanted to get into a little bit of the anatomy part of it. Like, what is the gut? What are we talking about with the gut?
Gut is a tube that goes from your mouth to the rectum anus area, right?
Okay.
So it starts with the esophagus, which we call a food pipe. Then esophagus goes down to the stomach. From there, the duodenum, ileum, and then a colon, which is the large intestine. So in the gut, when you eat the food, that goes first through the esophagus and then goes down to the stomach. In between the esophagus and stomach, there is a valve. That valve is supposed to open in the downward direction. So when there's a lot of bad bacteria in the stomach and they produce gas, and that valve could open in the opposite direction. So that's when you develop acid reflux, right? So we tend to think acid reflux is coming because we are producing more acid. That's not always the case, because it could be because you have a lot of things that shouldn't stay in the stomach, and those bacteria are producing the gas. And we have to, that is the difference there again. In the functional medicine, we fix those issues rather than just giving the acid blocking medication, which is actually not good to take in a long run.
And I know we're going to do another show talking more specifically about that. So another term I hear having to do with gut is leaky gut. Like what does leaky gut mean, or what part of the body are we talking about?
Leaky gut is mainly we're talking, in fact, when there is leaky gut, you have it's all over the gut, gastrointestinal tract.
Okay.
But we imply mostly to the small intestine, where this is the place where the food is mainly supposed to get absorbed. It is not the place where the bacteria sit. But when the bacteria comes to that small intestine, which we'll talk later in detail in the next show,
Yeah.
and then the bacteria creates inflammation, because that's not the place where bacteria is supposed to stay, right?
Yeah.
So they will be eating the food. They're used to eating the fiber usually in the large intestine,
Right.
but they come to a place where the food is not in the form of fiber. Then they create inflammation in the gut, and there is a gas that is produced. The small intestine is not designed to expand like the large intestine. So when it expands with all the gas that comes from the bacteria, then you get the bloating, pain, and all these symptoms.
And that, are we talking about SIBO then?
SIBO, yeah.
So we'll talk about that more afterwards. But just the idea of that, when you were talking about nutrients not getting absorbed, and so even though we think we're eating healthy and we're taking supplements, they're not really getting through because of some...
Right, because the lining of the gut is supposed to be intact. If you imagine there are two cells there shouldn't be any space between the cells and the lining.
Is that the tight junctions?
That's the tight junctions.
Yeah.
So when there's a gap in between the cells, what happens is the undigested food that gets to the gap. And the nutrients that are supposed to go through the cell surface are not going, because that cell surface is not healthy enough to absorb the nutrients properly. So the ones that you don't want get inside, and the ones that you want, they don't go inside. But this undigested food, when it gets into your inside the bloodstream, and your immune system is like, what is going on here? Why are you coming inside? You're supposed to be eliminated. Then it overreacts, and it reacts, not overreacts.
Got it. So when you're talking about autoimmune conditions, is this tied in then?
Actually, yes, this could be one of the root causes of autoimmune conditions as well. That's why the first thing we see for the autoimmune conditions is the gut. There's so many people who can get much better with their autoimmune conditions once you fix the gut.
Right, as opposed to taking some type of a medication for it.
Yeah, we have to do a lot more than this, but this is the main thing.
So a person might come in to you with these symptoms. You do, in functional medicine, you do specialized testing, lab testing, so blood tests, stool tests.
Yes, we do several tests, like blood test, and we do the stool test for the digestive analysis, and there's a breath test that we do, and a lot of times it's a blood spot also. It's a very convenient test. You don't always have to send the patients to the lab.
Okay.
So you can even do it in office, the blood spot, breath testing, and stool testing. And there's a urine testing. You can evaluate all the nutrients through the urine testing itself.
So you get a much more comprehensive look at the person.
Right, much more comprehensive.
And then I'm imagining, so just to help people understand what it's like when they first encounter a functional medicine doctor. So they've decided that, okay, they've seen their PCP. PCP is not able to, they're just giving you a medication recommendation. And so you decide, I'd like to look at a more natural.
Right. When the patients want to see us, like, first thing we have to do is, of course, there is a discovery call.
Yeah.
So we talk to the patient for 10 to 15 minutes and see whether that's the right patient for the functional medicine.
Got it. Okay.
So we request for the medical records, which is actually required before the visit.
Yeah.
Once we get the medical records, we review the patient's medical records, and we already know about the patient before we even see the patient, right? So we take a detailed history when they come, and we map the timeline with their personal information, like from even before they were born, like, how the pregnancy was for their mom and things like that. The whole timeline is mapped, and we have long questionnaires that the patients have to fill. So we get to know a lot about the patients. That helps us direct the patients in a right way, so we know which test to order.
Yeah. Wow, that's impressive, because I get a sense that by the time we finished our introduction, you know so much about me.
Exactly.
And it really, my immediate sense is one of trust.
Yes.
Like, you know me, you've heard me, even going back to, what it was like, was I delivered vaginally, was I breastfed, like what my parents, what their history was. It can be a lot of information, right?
Even during the exam, it's much different from the routine traditional exam because you go into very detailed exam, like, including the nails and your eyes, hair.
So you still do a
skin,
complete physical exam?
Complete, much more detailed physical exam you do.
So you can tell information about...
Even just by the history and by the physical exam, you can give a lot of information. Most of the time I even find out the results before the labs come also. Just by talking to the patient.
So that's interesting, looking at someone's nails or even hair distribution, things like that, skin.
We can tell what's going on.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's a very interesting field of medicine.
I want to see if there were any other questions I wanted to ask. Oh, I know one other thing was having to do with, usually when I've gone to a doctor, MD, for primary care, they don't talk very much about food or supplements. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about that, particularly supplements. You're like, oh, just go to CVS and get, whatever. I don't do that. Even when I was doing traditional practice, I have always guided the patients in detail about the supplements. I used to have a list of all the supplements and used to mark for the patients. The reason being, there's a lot out there. There's so many things that the patients has to choose from, but I don't think it's that easy for the patients like it was. Each supplement comes in so many different forms and different strength. To me, it's almost like a prescription medication. I'm not comfortable telling patients, just go take the CoQ10. In that CoQ10, there are so many types of CoQ10s, so many strengths of CoQ10s, and you need to tell the patients what time of the day they have to take it. And of course, it has got interactions and adverse effects. You have to guide the patient properly. But this is all a time-intensive process, So that's why the functional doctors have enough time to educate the patients on the supplements. So you can help people with quality, quantity,
yes, exactly,
form, like the type, if it's coming in a liquid form versus
like magnesium. Magnesium comes like a magnesium oxide, glycinate, thionate, so many different forms. If you just say magnesium supplement, there are like 100 magnesium supplements there. Which ones the patients can choose? You should guide the patients. And also, where can they go? Like each supplement, so for example, my favorite supplements, one in one brand and the other one in a different brand. So I like to put them all together and give it to the patient.
And make it convenient. So you can give them a easy way to access their supplements.
So they don't have to spend a lot of time or money online.
So there's no one, that's what I always say, I'm not married to any brands. I want to hand select for you.
I select different brands for different supplements.
That's so huge. That's such a money saver for people. Because I
time
see,
saver too.
And time saver, because I see people come for coaching with me and they'll bring in shopping bags full of, I'm like, that probably cost you $2,000 just to buy all these supplements.
And I had a patient who came in to see me for the chronic conditions related to her skin. And first thing I did was, show me all your supplements, So she was taking 3 different kinds of supplements that had got high doses of vitamin A in it. She thought one for the hair and nails, one general multivitamin, and one for the eyes or something she was taking. I'm like, oh my God, no wonder you have all these side effects. So she didn't even know that the vitamin A is something that she shouldn't be taking because it's a fat-soluble vitamin. So we can't take it from 3 different supplements, So it's very important, in my opinion, that we should look at the supplements and advise them properly.
That's huge, again, for you to have that specialized knowledge. We're about out of time, and so this was a good start for us to get to know functional integrative medicine and get to know you. But I would love to have you come back and talk with us about gut health specifically. We touched on it a bit,
I would love to do that,
but I'd like to dive a little deeper and even talk about other ways that other kinds of more detailed information, other ways we can collaborate. So I'm looking forward to doing that.
Thank you so much, Joyce.
So thanks for coming today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.